You might believe that if you just try hard enough, push enough, and show enough love, someone who is avoidant will finally come around. But here's the thing, with someone who distances themselves emotionally, that strategy backfires every single time. What if I told you that a few calm words, paired with the simple act of stepping back, could actually make them feel your presence more intensely than any desperate chase ever could? There is a moment in every connection with an avoidant person when your words stop being just noise and start hitting something deeper inside them. Most of their lives are spent building walls, keeping people at arm's length, and carefully controlling who gets to see the real them. But there comes a split second when all that control wavers, just a little. A crack forms in the fortress. And it doesn't happen because you begged or pushed harder. It happens because you said something that reached straight into their emotional core. I want to walk you through 6 psychological truths behind why almost every avoidant person finds it nearly impossible to resist you when you speak these words. This isn't about learning tricks or playing games. It's about emotional maturity, real authenticity, and knowing your own worth so deeply that even the most guarded person notices your presence long after you stop trying to make them see it. When you calmly say, "I understand, and I'm not going to chase you," something subtle but powerful shifts inside them. They are used to a pattern. The more they pull back, the harder others try to pull them forward. They've seen the pleading, the tears, the arguments, and the desperate attempts to convince them to stay. But when you meet their withdrawal with quiet calm instead of anxious energy, it sends an unmistakable message. You are no longer in the business of earning their love. That single shift in your energy rattles their emotional foundation more than you might realize. Avoidant people hold on to control tightly because it feels safe, and distance is how they maintain that safety. When you stop chasing, you subtly take that control away from them. They no longer get to dictate the pace of the connection. You are not waiting around, begging, or overreacting. You are simply letting them be who they are while staying completely yourself. That quiet confidence draws them in because it showcases something they desperately lack: emotional security. The steadiness in your voice and the certainty behind your words communicate self-respect in a way they simply cannot ignore. You are showing them that you understand their fears without needing to fix them. That is a rare and powerful kind of love, one with clear boundaries, not a version of attachment disguised as care. Suddenly, the avoidant person begins to feel something unfamiliar. It's not pressure. It's a safe curiosity. They start wondering why you didn't react the way they expected, why you seem perfectly fine without them, why your energy feels lighter and freer than before. In that silent space you've created, their defenses begin to crack. They replay your words over and over, trying to understand how someone can remain so calm while stepping back. It stops being about rejection and starts being about respect. The more they reflect, the more they feel. Your absence becomes louder than any message you could have sent. It lingers in their mind because avoidant people are drawn to those who can hold their own emotional space. Your detachment isn't cold or cruel. It's mature. It quietly says, "I care about you, but I also care about myself." That is the moment the power dynamic begins to change. They start associating you with calmness rather than conflict. You stop being the person trying to break through their walls and become the person who never needed to in the first place. That is what makes them unable to resist you. It's not just the words you use, it's the strength, composure, and deep self-love behind them. When you say, "I deserve emotional availability," even if it's not from you, it strikes a profound chord in the avoidant psyche. These words aren't meant to blame or shame. They are about reclaiming your own emotional value. Many avoidant individuals move through relationships, assuming that others will simply adjust to their limitations. They expect endless patience, tolerance, and acceptance of their distance because closeness feels threatening. So when you confidently state that you deserve emotional availability, you are not begging for attention. You are setting a boundary rooted in self-respect. This boundary feels completely unfamiliar to them, and it instantly changes how they perceive you. They recognize that you are not someone trying to prove your worth. You already know it. That energy is magnetic because it carries a quiet authority. Most avoidants carry a hidden guilt deep down. They know, even if they rarely admit it, that they are emotionally inconsistent. They see the confusion, sadness, and disappointment in others, but justify it as necessary self-protection. When you claim that you deserve something more, without anger or desperation, you awaken that buried awareness inside them. You hold up a mirror that reflects both their fears and your strength. It's not just the words that affect them. It's the combination of those words and your energy. The calmness, the patience, the self-possession, and the clarity. It is a living demonstration that you do not rely on them to validate your value. When avoidants encounter this kind of presence, they are compelled to take notice. They start questioning why your presence no longer revolves around their actions. They notice how you walk through life with steadiness, how your calm energy contrasts so sharply with their inner turbulence. That contrast makes them reconsider what closeness really means. It stops being a source of anxiety and becomes a puzzle they cannot ignore. You are showing them a different model of connection, one where love exists without smothering, where boundaries are honored, and where independence can coexist with genuine care. And in that space, they begin to feel something truly rare. There is something deeply compelling about a person who can be both fully present and yet somehow untouchable. It sparks a desire that isn't born from desperation, but from genuine curiosity. And that pull is incredibly magnetic. When you stop chasing, you become more powerful than you ever were while running after someone. It's an invisible force that draws them closer while allowing you to keep your self-respect completely intact. Avoidant individuals are conditioned to expect people to bend, adjust, and constantly try to earn their affection. But when you refuse to conform to that tired pattern, the entire dynamic flips. They feel an unfamiliar discomfort, one that comes from realizing your value doesn't rise or fall based on their behavior. That realization is profound. They begin replaying your interactions, recalling your words, and wondering why you remain so composed while stepping back. That reflection deepens their emotional awareness in ways they don't expect. They start to feel your absence more intensely than any message or plea could ever convey. The beauty of this approach lies in its subtlety. You are not punishing them or seeking revenge. You are simply demonstrating that your love is balanced with self-respect, that your care is guided by emotional honesty, and that your presence is rooted in strength rather than neediness. You become a living example of emotional integrity, something they rarely get to witness up close. Over time, the avoidant person begins to associate you with calmness, security, and genuine maturity. They realize that their usual defenses, distance, detachment, and control cannot diminish the value you have placed on yourself. Your strength becomes a mirror they simply cannot look away from. It's not about intimidation, it's about quiet authority. You are showing them that you are whole and complete without needing to pull them close. And that independence, combined with authentic care, becomes the ultimate form of influence. When you speak words like, "I respect myself enough to wait for emotional availability, but I will not compromise my value," it resonates at a deep, almost primal level. It communicates that your self-worth is non-negotiable. It signals that love is not about sacrificing your dignity, but about holding space for real, authentic connection. For the avoidant, this is revolutionary. They are confronted with someone who embodies calm confidence and emotional security, traits they deeply admire, but rarely allow themselves to cultivate. The shift is subtle, yet seismic. Your presence, steady and self-assured, creates a gravitational pull they cannot explain. They may not understand it consciously at first, but their nervous system feels it. That quiet authority sparks curiosity, reflection, and ultimately desire. They start to notice your value, not because you demanded recognition, but because you maintained it without compromise. Even in your absence, your energy lingers. Avoidants begin to replay your behavior, your words, your tone, and the calmness in your actions. They question why you don't overreact, why you don't chase, why your presence isn't contingent on their actions. That reflection generates a longing that is different from obsession. It is admiration, respect, and genuine emotional recognition. This is the type of attention that cannot be forced or fabricated. It is earned simply by being whole, confident, and grounded in yourself. Your calm, measured presence becomes a template for connection that they find irresistible. You demonstrate that love is not chaos, neediness, or anxious attachment. It is clarity, confidence, and self-respect. That combination awakens something within them they rarely experience, the recognition of value existing outside their control. They feel compelled to notice, to reflect, and to approach, but now on your terms. That is the true power of being emotionally available while remaining self-possessed. You are showing them what genuine emotional maturity looks like. Clear communication without blame, love without dependency. In that moment, something inside them begins to shift. They start to realize that your presence was never about control. It was always about authentic connection. The real power lies in the statement itself, even if it's not spoken directly. It signals that your happiness, your peace, and your emotional well-being do not depend on them. That alone brings freedom. It frees you from waiting and frees them from the illusion that they hold all the control. It shows you are willing to lose them rather than lose yourself. And that self-assuredness changes everything. Avoidants are drawn to people who don't cling or fall apart emotionally when faced with distance. When they notice that you can walk away gracefully, they start to see you differently, not as someone to protect themselves from, but as someone who genuinely values themselves. Suddenly, they notice your absence. The energy of being chosen by someone so confident lingers long after you stop trying. You are no longer chasing their love. You have become the one they cannot stop thinking about. When you choose your own peace over the chaos of chasing, something shifts inside you that others cannot ignore. That quiet, firm decision to prioritize yourself makes you genuinely unforgettable. You become the person who loved them with strength instead of fear. And when you say something as simple as, "I'm not angry, I just see things clearly now," it cuts straight through their avoidant emotional shield. Avoidants are conditioned to expect dramatic reactions when they pull away. On some level, they rely on your confusion, your pleading, or your frustration because it keeps them in control. Your emotional turmoil reinforces their belief that intimacy equals pressure. But when you respond with calm clarity instead of anger, you take away that leverage entirely. Suddenly, they are no longer the ones steering the story. You are no longer the person they can define through their avoidance. You've stepped into emotional neutrality, and that neutrality is genuine power. It unsettles them because you are no longer following the hidden rules that make them feel safe and superior. Clarity is something most avoidants lack within themselves. They live in a state of constant inner conflict, wanting love, but fearing it, needing connection, but sabotaging it. So when you express that, you see things clearly. You reflect the awareness they have been avoiding all along. It's not about being right. It's about showing growth. You demonstrate that you no longer need emotional chaos to understand the truth. You've noticed the patterns, understood the cycles, and chosen peace over confusion. That calm detachment is magnetic because it radiates emotional maturity. They sense your energy shifting from needing them to understanding them, and that difference draws them in. Avoidants are attracted to people who carry the balance they lack. When you stop reacting emotionally, you show an inner strength that commands respect. You're not seeking revenge or validation. You're simply stating your truth with steadiness. At that moment, they start realizing something important. They can no longer hide behind their usual defenses. Your calmness exposes their emotional immaturity in a way that feels undeniable. They begin replaying the moment, wondering when you became so self-assured. When you stop trying to make them care, that realization hits harder than any argument ever could. Silence paired with clarity forces them to confront themselves. Your words linger long after the conversation ends. They may not admit it, but it unsettles them in a way they simply cannot ignore. You have shifted from emotional dependency to awareness, reclaiming your power in the process. You're not angry because you've outgrown needing to fight for something that drains you. You simply see things clearly now, and that calm truth is unforgettable. When you say, I wish you the best, even if it's not with you. You show a level of emotional strength most avoidants never expect. These words are not bitter or resentful. They come from acceptance rather than attachment. Avoidants are used to people trying to convince them to stay, to change, or to finally see their worth. They are used to guilt, arguments, or emotional pleading when they pull away. But when you release them with grace, you do something profoundly powerful. You show that your love doesn't rely on possession. You give them something rare, unconditional respect, paired with emotional independence. That moment changes everything because it removes the pressure they usually associate with love. For someone who fears closeness, your acceptance feels safe. Paradoxically, the more you let them go, the more they feel drawn toward you. Avoidants subconsciously test whether someone will lose themselves trying to hold on. When you choose peace over persuasion, you break that pattern completely. You show them that your happiness isn't tied to their presence, and that radiates authentic confidence. Saying, "I wish you the best," isn't ego. It comes from a place of knowing your own value. You're not pretending not to care. You're acknowledging that you care enough to release what no longer serves your growth. That energy shifts everything in their mind. Suddenly, you're not just another person who needed them, you're someone they were lucky to know. That level of emotional maturity leaves a lasting impression. Avoidants often avoid conflict at all costs, but your calm detachment doesn't give them anything to escape from. Instead, it leaves them sitting with their own thoughts, feeling curious, confused, and even regretful. They start questioning why your energy feels so different, why it brings peace instead of chaos, and why they can't stop thinking about someone who wished them well and moved forward with such grace. That kindness haunts them. It lingers because it reflects the one thing they crave, but fear most: real love without control. Your strength is in letting go without resentment. By releasing them with love, you reclaim your power. You teach them that genuine connection doesn't demand, it allows. It doesn't chase, it trusts. And when they realize you let go without bitterness, you become unforgettable. Not because you fought for them, but because you never needed to. When you say, "I'm choosing peace over proving my worth," you dismantle the emotional dynamic avoidants unconsciously rely on. Avoidants often find comfort in relationships where the other person is constantly trying to earn their love, where validation and closeness are things to be obtained. It keeps them in control and reassures their fear of vulnerability. But when you stop trying to prove yourself, you shatter that illusion. Through your words and energy, you communicate that your value doesn't depend on their approval. This is the real turning point, because avoidants are drawn to those who carry unwavering inner peace. They can feel it. They might not say it out loud, but it shifts the way they see you forever. To someone who fears emotional dependence, your calm, self-contained peace draws them in naturally. It's not about arrogance or being detached, it's quiet confidence. It communicates, "I know who I am, whether or not you approve of me." Avoidants spend much of their lives dodging emotional responsibility, convincing themselves they don't need anyone. But deep down, they secretly long for the stability of someone who feels secure in themselves. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you reflect the emotional steadiness they quietly desire. You become someone they admire, not because you demanded it, but because you show it effortlessly. There's also an underlying message of closure in this choice. Saying, "I'm choosing peace," signals that you've stopped fighting draining battles. You're done chasing confusion or trying to decode mixed messages. You've chosen clarity, and that choice gives you power. Avoidants often expect emotional chaos and unconsciously link it to love. When you don't participate in that chaos, you interrupt the rhythm they are used to. Your peace may feel strange at first, yet it's deeply comforting. It attracts them even while they try to convince themselves it doesn't matter. That internal conflict keeps you lingering in their mind long after the interaction ends. In that moment, you reflect everything they avoid confronting within themselves. You chose peace not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself more. That calm sense of self-worth becomes your energy signature, something unforgettable that cannot be imitated. You stopped trying to prove your value, and in doing so, you became the person they cannot stop thinking about. When you say, I respect your space, but I also respect my needs, you strike a rare emotional balance that most avoidant individuals have never truly experienced. These words carry both compassion and self-respect, a combination that is deeply magnetic to someone who instinctively fears closeness. Avoidants are used to people either crowding them relentlessly or disappearing completely. But when you calmly acknowledge their boundaries while firmly honoring your own, you create an emotional equilibrium that feels entirely different. You aren't forcing them to come closer, nor are you retreating into silence. You meet them with balance, a space that feels both safe and strong. That balance confuses them, but it also captivates them. They feel seen, yet challenged in a way that is healthy and unfamiliar. By saying this, you show that you understand their emotional patterns without losing yourself in the process. Avoidants fear being overwhelmed by someone else's needs, yet deep down they desire connection with someone who can honor their space while staying true to themselves. When you state your own needs as well, you demonstrate emotional self-sufficiency. You are not waiting for them to meet your expectations before you value yourself. You signal that while you care for them, you will not compromise your own boundaries. That quiet confidence unsettles them in the most compelling way. It makes them realize that your presence is not a burden, it is a conscious choice. This level of emotional maturity challenges everything they believe about relationships. Avoidants often convince themselves that closeness equals suffocation. Your energy shows them otherwise. You prove that love doesn't mean giving up independence, it can mean coexistence. You don't beg for reassurance or validation. Instead, you create stability through self-awareness. That balance disarms them because it invites connection without demanding it. It makes them rethink old patterns, deep-seated fears, and past choices. For perhaps the first time, they get a glimpse of what healthy love actually feels like, freedom and respect existing together without conflict. Over time, those words echo in their mind. They remember your calm tone, your unwavering balance, and how it made them feel both secure and curious. You show them that respecting space doesn't mean absence, it means trust. And valuing your own needs doesn't mean selfishness, it means strength. That balance is irresistible because it represents something they rarely encounter. Someone who loves with understanding while never forgetting their own worth. Ultimately, what makes most avoidants unable to resist you is not a game, manipulation, or perfect phrasing. It's your energy. It's the peace you embody when you stop chasing love and start living it fully. Avoidants are not drawn to chaos. They are drawn to calm, confidence, emotional clarity, and someone who can love without losing themselves. When you speak from self-respect instead of fear, you break all the unspoken rules their avoidance depends on. You stop being someone trying to win them over and become the person who simply doesn't need to. That shift is rare and powerful. It tells them, I see you, but I also see myself. And that is unforgettable. You become unforgettable not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting yourself. You become magnetic not through carefully chosen words, but through a quiet strength that speaks volumes. You show, without trying, that love rooted in peace is the love that truly lasts. Even if they walk away, your presence lingers. Every connection they have after you is compared to the calm, grounded energy you left behind. That is when you truly succeed, not by making them stay, but by becoming someone whose energy they simply cannot forget. You become a standard, a presence, a force they cannot replace or ignore, no matter how hard they try.